Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It was a freezing winter afternoon in central Ohio, the kind of cold that seems to seep through even the thickest clothing. The wind hurled snow and sleet mercilessly from the northwest, and I was starting to feel the familiar ache of the flu settling in. As a carpenter, I was perched on an exposed hillside, framing a house while the icy air cut through me like a blade. Recently, I'd been clocking extra hours to save for a family trip to Panama City, Florida, planned for spring break. Money had been tight ever since we bought the spacious home, a place my wife had always dreamed of owning. The thought of warm Florida beaches offered a small comfort as I worked. I imagined myself soaking up the sun by the ocean, a welcome escape from Ohio's relentless winter. The fantasy even included sneaking a few discreet glances at the college girls on the beach, just a fleeting indulgence in a monotonous grind. But today, I felt absolutely miserable. My head throbbed, my fever climbed, and the unforgiving weather made every movement an ordeal. I told the foreman I needed to call it a day. He took one look at my pale, fevered face and sent me home without protest, warning me not to risk pneumonia. Without hesitation, I climbed into my old truck and began the drive home, too drained to even call my wife and let her know I was on my way. Let me introduce myself. My name is Elijah Lipton. I'm 36 years old, 6 feet tall, and weigh 220 pounds. Sure, I carry a bit of extra weight, but I've always enjoyed my beer and the occasional lazy evening. My hair is thinning, but at this point in my life, I'm not looking to impress anyone. My wife Elena, short for Elena, is my world. We've been married for 16 years, tying the knot fresh out of high school. Elena works part-time at a medical office, handling records and insurance paperwork 3 days a week. She isn't flashy, but she has an enduring beauty. At 5'4" and about 140 pounds, she wears her figure confidently, even after giving birth to our 2 kids. Brad, our 15-year-old son, and Angie, our 13-year-old daughter, are good kids, average students, but kind-hearted. We're a close family. I tend to be the disciplinarian, while Elena provides the softer touch. It's a system that works for us. That afternoon, around 1:30, I pulled into the garage and noticed Elena's car was gone. She was probably running errands, I figured. Exhausted, I dragged myself inside, aching from head to toe, and headed straight for the shower. But as I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, I noticed something strange. The bed was unmade. This was unusual. Elena was meticulous about keeping the house in order. As I stripped off my work clothes, I noticed damp spots on the sheets where the covers had been tossed back. My fingers brushed against the fabric. It was slick and damp. Bringing them to my nose, I caught a distinct, unmistakable odor. It was the smell of intimacy, and it wasn't mine. My heart sank. I couldn't recall the last time Elena and I had been together, more than a week ago at least. Lately, I'd been too worn out from work. Anger and confusion surged through me, but my fever-clouded mind struggled to process it all. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to shower, take some medicine, and think it over. The hot water brought temporary relief to my chilled body, but my thoughts churned with disbelief and betrayal. After drying off and slipping into my pajamas, I took a dose of NyQuil and began moving my things into the guest room down the hall. I had just finished relocating when I heard the garage door open. Elena was back, and she wasn't alone. I could hear voices coming from the kitchen. Moments later, hurried footsteps echoed on the stairs. She appeared in the hallway, her face pale as she spotted me with an armful of clothes. "Oh, you're home," she said, her voice trembling. "I had to rush to school. Brad wasn't feeling well." "I'm sick too," I replied flatly, brushing past her. "I'm going to bed." "Why aren't you sleeping in our bed?" she asked, trailing after me. "I don't want to give you the flu. Besides, I'm sure your lover wouldn't appreciate catching it either," I shot back. Her face went ashen. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "Go check the bed and tell me I'm wrong," I said coldly. She turned and entered the bedroom. A moment later, I heard her stifled sobs. "Oh God," she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I left in such a rush. I didn't have time to. I don't want excuses. I cut her off sharply. Right now, I'm too sick to deal with this. When I'm better, you'd better have one hell of an explanation. Tears streaked down her face as she leaned against the wall, whispering, I'm so sorry. I said nothing more, retreating to the guest room. Before shutting the door, I made one thing clear. I'll never sleep in that bed again. Then, I closed the door behind me, locking myself away from the storm raging inside my heart. Save that excuse for your lover, I said, my voice cold. And while you're at it, be prepared to give me his name. Please don't do this, she implored, her voice trembling. Don't call me honey. My tone was as steady as steel. As far as I'm concerned, our marriage is over. Whatever vows we shared, you've already destroyed them. I'll be sleeping in the guest room until I figure out what comes next. Her quiet sobs followed me as I left the room, shutting the door behind me. I crawled into the spare bed, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. Her faint, broken murmurs of, "Oh God," were the last sounds I heard before silence enveloped the house. I woke sometime in the middle of the night, disoriented and reaching out instinctively to the empty space beside me. The absence of her warmth reminded me of everything that had shattered. With a sigh, I sat up, muttering curses under my breath, and ran a hand over my face. A gnawing hunger prompted me to grab my robe and head downstairs. The clock in the kitchen showed it was just past 2 a.m. I rummaged through the fridge, reheating leftovers as the microwave's steady hum filled the silence. My thoughts swirled, fragments of my marriage flashing through my mind like a cruel slideshow. I couldn't make sense of it yet. A quiet sound by the doorway pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Elena standing there, wrapped in her nightrobe, her face pale and blotchy from crying. I heard you come down, she said softly. Are you willing to talk now? I set my fork down and looked at her, my gaze steady. Sure. Are you ready to be honest? She hesitated, her voice faltering. I'll try. I think you already know who it is, but I can't bring myself to say his name. Then we have nothing to discuss, I replied, my tone flat. I'll start moving out tomorrow. Wait, she said quickly, her voice shaking. It's Anthony Barton. I stared at her, stunned. The doctor? She nodded. Yes. And how long has this been going on? About 6 weeks, she admitted, barely above a whisper. Do you love him? I don't know. You don't know? My voice rose sharply. You've been with him, physically, emotionally, in the bed we built our life on, the bed where we created our children, and now you're not sure if they're even mine? My words were intentionally cutting. Her face crumpled with pain. God, no, Elijah, don't say that. Is it over? I demanded, leaning forward. I don't know, she whispered, her voice trembling. You don't know? Anger surged through me, my fists clenching. You don't know? Please, Elijah, she said desperately, her voice a hush. Keep your voice down, you'll wake the kids. I fixed her with a glare. You can't even tell me if it's over, and yet you think I'll just stand by and watch this happen? I don't want a divorce, she said, her voice cracking. I still love you. But Anthony, he's married too. He has 3 kids, just like us. He can't leave them, but he needs me. He needs my love, just like you do. Her words hit me like a blow. You're seriously asking me to tolerate this? To stay and provide for you while you carry on with him? Her expression shifted, becoming oddly composed. Elijah, I saw a lawyer yesterday. He told me divorce would be costly for you. You'd end up paying for the entire process, alimony, child support, and likely lose custody of the kids. I think it's better if you let me continue seeing Anthony until we figure this out. Her calm tone left me speechless. Finally, I managed to say, You're serious? You want me to accept this? To keep working while you betray me? Is that what you're suggesting? Yes, she replied without hesitation. When you think it through, you'll see you don't have many choices. Rage bubbled inside me, barely contained. Fine, I said through clenched teeth. Tomorrow, I'll talk to my own lawyer. Maybe they'll see things differently. Go ahead, she said coolly, turning away. I hope you'll come to your senses. I love you, Elijah. I want us to work through this. This is just temporary. When it's over, I'll come back to you, as your wife. I stood, my eyes blazing. Let me be clear. I will never accept this. Never. How could I trust you again? How could I believe you won't do this a second time? You've already torn apart everything we built together. Her face hardened. I thought we could handle this maturely. But if you want to be stubborn, fine. Talk to your lawyer. We'll continue this tomorrow. She left me standing there, the cold kitchen a reflection of my fury. Hours later, I climbed back into the guest bed, my decision made. The next morning, I rose early, ready to act. With the kids at school and Elena at work, I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney. Then I visited my parents to tell them everything. Their shock and anger mirrored my own, but they supported my decision and offered their help. By the end of that day, my path forward was set. There was no turning back. After much deliberation, I decided to visit Elena's parents to share the unfolding turmoil in our marriage. Their response was one of stunned disbelief. They struggled to reconcile their daughter's actions with the consequences now impacting our family. Leaving their home, I took the next practical steps, contacting both our insurance agent and family lawyer to update my policy and will. Then I called my boss to discuss the situation before heading to the bank. The day was a relentless blur, culminating in a final critical phone call late in the afternoon. With the preparations in place, I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation. As I awaited the kids' return from school, I began packing my belongings into my old truck. When Brad and Angie arrived, I ushered them into the den for a candid discussion. Believing they were mature enough to grasp the situation, I explained their mother's actions and the significant impact on our family. Their reactions ranged from shock to a deep, palpable disappointment. I laid out the next steps, emphasizing that despite the circumstances, they would be cared for and supported. Though visibly pained, they understood the gravity of the situation. After our talk, I drove them to my parents' house, ensuring they were in a secure and loving environment before Elena returned home. Elena arrived at her usual time, walking into the kitchen where I sat waiting at the table. Her first words were, "Didn't you go to work today?" "No," I replied calmly. "I had other things to handle." She shrugged as she hung up her coat, then turned to me. "Where are the kids?" she asked. "They're at my parents' house," I said evenly. "Have you given more thought to what we talked about last night?" she asked, a hint of expectation in her tone. "I have," I responded. "I spent the day meeting with a divorce lawyer who confirmed everything you told me about my responsibilities should we separate." Her face lit up. "So, it's settled? You'll let me have my fling and we'll move on with our lives?" "No," I said, my voice firm. "I told you before, I won't accept that. I won't stay in this marriage or support you while being betrayed. I've come up with another plan." Her brows furrowed in confusion. "What plan?" "I'm not divorcing you," I said bluntly. A wave of relief crossed her face. "Then how are you going to avoid being betrayed?" "Well," I replied, "I can't stop you from betraying me, but it won't be with Anthony. I called his wife earlier and told her everything. I doubt he'll have a job tomorrow." Her face drained of color. "You didn't," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I did," I confirmed, "and I also quit my own job. As of now, I'm unemployed." Her shock turned to panic. "Have you lost your mind? How are we supposed to survive?" "That's for you to figure out," I replied coldly. "What's your plan for survival?" "What do you mean?" she stammered. "I'm leaving," I said plainly. "But I'm not filing for divorce. If you want one, you'll need to initiate and finance it yourself. You can even use abandonment as the reason." Her voice wavered. "And the kids?" "They're staying with my parents. If you can't provide for them, you might have to relinquish custody so they can remain under health insurance. Everyone, my parents, your parents, knows about your selfish demands. I doubt anyone is sympathetic to your situation." Her composure cracked. "You can't do this. I'll take you to court if you abandon us." "You can try," I said, unshaken. "But I'll be far away and no court can force me to work if I choose not to." Rising from the table, I delivered the final blow. You're now responsible for the mortgage, car payments, and the furniture you insisted on buying. I've taken half of the savings for my move, and my last paycheck will go into our joint account. The will and insurance policies are updated. Only the kids will benefit." Her expression turned to fury. "You're a coward and a selfish jerk," she spat. "You've thrown away everything we had." "Have a nice life, Elena," I said, walking out to my truck. I backed out of the garage and drove away, determined to leave this chapter of my life far behind. I drove non-stop until exhaustion caught up with me, heading south to the Gulf Coast where anonymity and work in construction awaited. I found a community of people with similar stories, each seeking a fresh start. Over the years, my parents kept me updated. Elena lost her job, and Anthony's wife dismantled his life through a public and costly divorce. Elena eventually moved into a small apartment, unable to afford her own divorce proceedings. The kids thrived under my parents' care, growing into responsible, resilient individuals. I supported them financially, keeping in touch through calls, gifts, and cards. 7 years later, I returned for a brief visit and reunited with my children. They had matured into admirable young adults thanks to my parents' unwavering love and guidance. They harbored little affection for Elena, who had failed to mend their broken trust. During my visit, I stopped by the store where Elena worked as a cashier. Approaching her register, I saw her look up and freeze. Her face turned pale. "Are you enjoying life?" I asked evenly. Her lips trembled and she fainted. Without another glance, I walked away, never seeing her again. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.